Knights of the Old Republic 2 is not really a nostalgic game for me. I don't think I played it until I was like 13 or 14 maybe. The game wasn't available in any stores here in Iceland when I was younger, so I didn't get to play it until I discovered a website named after oceanic lawbreakers made by two Swedish guys. So for me, Knights of the Old Republic 2 always had a huge air of mystery to it. And when I actually played the game, it still had that air of mystery. The state of the galaxy was a mystery. Where are the Jedi and Sith? Where is Revan? Who is my character? Who is this crazy old lady named Kreia? Why am I on a space station and why is everyone dead? Why are the Sith after me? Many questions, and most of them get answered. Also, the game is unfinished, but dedicated fans created the restored content mod, which mostly finishes the game. And playing the game with that mod is the objectively correct way to play the game. Plus, Knights of the Old Republic 2 has Steam Workshop, so modding is very easy. I have more nostalgia for Knights of the Old Republic 1, but I still think Knights of the Old Republic 2 is the better game and far more interesting. Premise: the game is set some years after the first game, kind of the aftermath of the first game's Jedi Civil War, where Revan killed Malak. After the war, the Republic was in a weakened state, and the Jedi even weaker, and the Sith started hunting Jedi from the shadows. They too were in a weakened state, so the Sith Empire went into hiding, and only struck from the shadows. Since Jedi were getting hunted down and had a difficult time finding the Sith, the Jedi went into hiding too. The Jedi Exile, the player character, was exiled from the Jedi Order, but the Sith still hunt you, and that is why your ship was attacked, and how you ended up in a Kolto tank. Now you must escape the station you're on and figure out how you can get the Sith to stop hunting you, with Kreia, an old Force-sensitive woman, as your guide, and many more companions who will help you. Also, my character is female because canonically the Jedi Exile is a female. Gameplay. I have recently reviewed Kotor 1 and this game is mostly the same, with some improvements. So I don't want to cover everything again, but turn-based combat that happens in real time with a lot of room for tactical thinking. Lots of dialogue and choices, minigames and some puzzles. Let's talk improvements. The first thing that jumped at me was the visuals. They seem way better, smoother, more detail, just more pleasing to the eye. The user interface is also better. The best example is the inventory screen. It's segregated by type, instead of having everything together creating a mess that takes way too long to scroll through. The UI also has an appropriate size, which is one of those things that back in the day it might have been comparable, but now the age of the games means things can be buggy, and I find Knights of the Old Republic 2 to be much less buggy. I don't think the game ever crashed. Kotor 1 crashed often, so in that regard, Kotor 2 is miles better. But Kotor 2 did inherit some of the same bugs, like getting stuck on nothing, but companions don't really fall behind anymore. If they are too far from you, they will teleport to you, which is a good quality of life feature. You no longer have to wait until you can go to the next area. Another great quality of life feature is starting as a Jedi. No more spending the first hours of the game under-leveled because you don't want to waste points on crappy normal person classes. This leads to the early game being a more smooth and fun experience, because being a Jedi is fun. But in Knights of the Old Republic 1, becoming a Jedi was this big moment that changed the game. In Kotor 2, that moment is replaced with you slowly gathering all the parts for a lightsaber, and then making your own. Which feels far more rewarding than just, welcome to Dantooine, you are Jedi now. It feels like you worked for the lightsaber. It's cool. I also feel like the balance of combat scenarios is better, at least in the early and mid-game, before you get max level Force Lightning. Yeah, that's very overpowered. But until that point, most of it were challenging fights where I had to use tactical thinking and use good abilities, and that led me to put more thought into how I would level up myself and my companions. There were some tough fights where I did resort to cheesing, which is harder to do in this game, since the enemies do follow you past walls, so I had to run farther. So instead of poking and then running away behind the wall, I tried to set a lot of mines and then bait enemies into them. That was pretty effective against melee-only enemies. Yeah, early game is a fair challenge. It isn't just push over, suddenly hard fight. Just a good challenge with some very challenging fights, but then you hit the power spike and start carving through enemies like butter. Or should I say, force storming through enemies like butter. I'm not complaining though. I earned that power, and it felt good. The combat does have the issue of fighting a combat encounter and then waiting or using an ability to get yourself to full health, which is a lot of downtime, but that's every true RPG. They all have it. The best example right now is Baldur's Gate 3. It's a staple of RPGs, and I'm used to it. And I view the downtime as an opportunity to think about how I could have done the last combat scenario better. I describe the combat in Kotor 1 as a fun laser show, and sometimes I just let it play out, and that felt less true, the letting it play out on its own part. I felt the game demanded more of me, but as for the laser show, it's better. It's got more combat animations and more lightsaber colors. I should have got to this earlier, but the normal classes also felt more useful. That is to say, ranged weapons, blasters, felt more useful. Even as a Jedi. Running into a firing squad with a melee weapon is the definition of stupidity, even if you are a space wizard. Shooting at them from a distance is the far safer strategy. Although, as a Jedi, you could adopt some blaster deflecting stance to defeat that encounter, maybe. And yeah, the Jedi forms is something I used a lot to get advantages in different situations. Overall, combat is a great improvement. The most unfortunate thing this game inherited from its predecessor is the targeting system. It can be annoying where other interactable targets can be in the way of the thing you want to target, which did disrupt my plans once or twice. Let's talk gear. I've already talked about how blasters and lightsabers are both useful, and I can add that a piece of gear can be useful throughout the game, especially if you upgrade it on a crafting bench. But let's talk about the really important part about the gear. Fashion. Gear was pretty lame in the first game, but here they did some upgrades. Jedi robes with a whole trench coat look, armor with some detail. They look nice, and I was getting gear that looked good to me often. But I did end up sticking to one armor for most of the playthrough because I liked the stats. But playing dress up on my companions was fun. Minigames. Pasak is still the same, but swoop races have changed, and I don't think I can call it an improvement. Sure, it's way more challenging, but I can't call it more fun. I pretty much just avoided them. It was more trouble than it was worth. Not my cup of tea. There's a crafting system. It can craft a lot of stuff, but I just used it to make computer spikes, their repair stuff, and med packs. So it makes it easier for you to repair a droid and turn it into the Terminator, or shutting down a building security. Again, preparation is rewarded here. To sum up the gameplay, it's improved on almost everything the original had to offer, getting you more engaged with a better challenge, giving you a better show, making things prettier, and it feels better balanced. Now, what about the story? Story. Star Wars is a dystopia. The story is a big mystery. Characters' motives are a mystery. The bad guys, the good guys, all a mystery. You don't even know who the main bad guy is until the end. I mean, you can kinda guess, but you don't get confirmation. So the story revolves around finding all the Jedi Masters so they can tell you why you were exiled, and maybe help you stop the Sith that are after you. This leads to you having a big impact on several planets. Let's take Nar Shaddaa as an example. The choices you make here will leave an impact on the planet. In terms of the impact you make on planets, it's one of the lesser ones. How are you going to find a Jedi on a city planet that probably has trillions of people on it? Let's let Kreia explain that with one of her many pearls of wisdom.
To those exchange thugs, stranger. Forgive me, stranger, but...
Why did you do such a thing? Such kindnesses will mean nothing. His path is set. Giving him what he has not earned is like pouring sand into his hands. And would that be a kindness? What if by surviving another day he brings a greater darkness upon another? The Force binds all things. The slightest push, the smallest touch, sends echoes throughout life. Even an act of kindness may have more severe repercussions than you know or can see. By giving him something he has not earned, perhaps all you have helped him become is a target. Seeing another elevated often brings the eyes of others who suffer. And perhaps in the end, all you have wrought is more pain. And that is my lesson to you. Be careful of charity and kindness, lest you do more harm with open hands than with a clenched fist.
The key sentence here is, the Force binds all things. The slightest push, the smallest touch, sends echoes throughout life. A Jedi can sense these echoes. They will draw him out. If you cause echoes of suffering, the Jedi won't be able to resist coming to stop you. If you cause echoes of joy or relief, the Jedi will feel safe in approaching you. So let's get started. There is a refugee sector here that is being oppressed by a gang called the Exchange, and some Serago gang. The refugees also have several other problems, and solving them will cause positive echoes. So I killed all the Exchange and Serago thugs, and then life is much better for the refugees. Then I continue solving many of their other problems to attract the attention of the Jedi. And because it's the right thing to do. And what I want to do, despite Kreia's protests. But this doesn't bring the Jedi to me. Not yet. Because I have another problem. Nar Shaddaa is ruled by the Hutts. And where there are Hutts, there are bounty hunters. And Jedi have pretty big bounties on them. So all the best bounty hunters on the planet are after me. But they aren't striking for some reason. Then, after I caused enough trouble, I get an invitation from the gang behind the Jedi bounty. It's an obvious trap, but it could be the best path to get rid of that Jedi bounty. And then A lot of stuff happens, and this isn't a story summary video, so I'm gonna jump ahead to talking to the gang boss about the Jedi bounty. After I talk about the impact I had on the planet. Me killing the gangs and helping the refugees has made their lives much happier and easier, at least for a time. They are still a vulnerable group, and sooner or later someone will bully them for profit. That is how Kreia wants you to think about your actions. You helping them might have only made them weaker. The reason for their oppression still remains. Their weakness. If you wanted to make sure they never got oppressed again, the better solution would have been to make them stronger. Make them fight the gangs. Instead, the lesson you taught the refugees was to rely on others for strength instead of themselves. The overarching lesson Kreia is trying to teach you is the opposite. Rely only on your own strength. Stand on your own 2 feet. Make yourself stronger and don't rely on just one source of strength, like relying only on the Force. Because if you lose the Force, you are useless. This can be said about any skill, so you should become competent at most stuff. The next lesson brings us back to the gang boss. Why does he have a bounty on Jedi? He wants to bring a Jedi to him, because he has a job for a Jedi. That is the job of ending the war between Jedi and Sith, so that life can return to normal for normal people. It's an understatement that a war between Sith and Jedi is causing many severe problems. He doesn't care which side wins, he just wants the galaxy to settle down and catch its breath. What a nightmare it is to be a normal human in the Star Wars galaxy, caught in the middle of endless wars between 2 groups of super-powered religious zealots. Yes, the Jedi are far better than the Sith because they would mostly leave you alone. But when there are endless wars, do you even care? Wouldn't you rather that they just died off? Your life would be better and more stable without them. And if you are unlucky enough to be a Force sensitive, you basically have 2 choices. Join the Sith and become a slave to your emotions and only act in the interest of increasing or preserving your power, basically a life of fear, or join the Jedi and become a slave to the needs of others while totally disregarding yourself and being a slave to the Force itself. Specifically, the will of the Force. Sure, you could try being a great Jedi, but few can resist the pull of both the dark and light side of the Force. The Force has some plan, or a desire for the galaxy to be a certain way, and it influences Force sensitives into working for that desire. In a galaxy like that, you don't really have free will. You are just a puppet tangled in strings. And the Force is the puppet master. This is a video game about space wizards. It has no right to make me think this deeply about this world. This is a very deep story. Way too deep for Star Wars. Many fleshed out factions and groups of people, and it constantly makes you question your decisions and whether the right thing to do is actually the right thing to do. Almost all the characters are very fleshed out with a rich backstory, and they are voice acted well.
I want to become like you. I want to be strong. I don't want to be afraid or alone anymore. I don't want to keep running and looking and never feel like I'm finding what I'm looking for. I am tired of being hunted. When the galaxy takes something from me, I want the power to let go. And I want the power to heal the echo when it's gone.
That does a great deal in pulling you in and making you think about the world and the characters. A great example of how well written the characters and world is that you can train some companions to become Jedi, and you can see the hints of them being force sensitive in dialogue. They are doing Jedi stuff without realizing, or they can be hiding their force sensitivity, and you can pick up on that in the things they do. God damn, I love this game. It's the best Star Wars story. It's a deconstruction, a subversion of Star Wars that Rian Johnson could only dream of. It's not just doing the opposite of what you think will happen. It is showing you the world in a different light, making you think about the world differently. Yeah, it's better than Knights of the Old Republic 1. To me, the original was basic compared to this one. And by the way, the lesson was that the Jedi and Sith suck. The main driving force, the thing that keeps you going in this story, is this woman, Atris.
How dare you? The Mandalorian Wars should have been your grave, and Malachor 5 is where you should have died.
She is such a contemptible bitch that you keep playing the game in the hopes of killing her. And spoiler alert, you can, and it feels damn good. I feel like there is so much more to be said about the story and why I like it, but I will end it here by just saying that it's awesome. Conclusion. Knights of the Old Republic 1 is a great game and stands on its own, but the sequel enriches the world so much and adds so much intrigue to make you want more, adding more philosophy, mythos, and the feeling that there is so much more to this world. And sure, we did get that, but not really. But we will cross that bridge when we get to it. There is a reason an anime fan could make a 2-hour video about the philosophy of a character in this game. It's a deep, well-written, and unfortunately unfinished game. I don't know how much of the intended content the restored content mod restores. I would assume most of it at this point, and most of it are great additions. So much so that I don't notice the difference. But then we get to M478, the cut droid planet. And I can safely say that you can skip this planet, and I totally understand why it was cut. Don't install the mod that adds this planet. It is very boring and tedious. It is the only planet I didn't enjoy. It adds more story to the world, sure, but playing it is not worth the trouble. It's just a lot of running back and forth. Play the game with a restored content mod that doesn't have M478. You'll have a good time. It's obvious I recommend the game, and I give the game a nerf herder out of dank ferric. Star Wars swears and insults are really terrible. Yeah, I'm gonna do the MMO next, maybe some stuff first. Subscribe, call me Cinder since people are just deciding to call me that now, and have an awesome day.